Carla Hassett is a Brazilian-American music producer, singer, songwriter, and music educator based in Los Angeles. Carla won the John Lennon Songwriting Contest with the grand prize in jazz for her self-penned and produced song Sempre Odara in 2019. Her voice can be heard in the movies Rio and Rio 2. Carla is currently a professor of commercial music at California State University, Los Angeles, and also teaches music production at Berklee Online, where she was my teacher, and that's how we met. How you doing, Carla?
I'm good. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been almost a year. Been doing a lot of music production, and you're my 5th guest on my YouTube channel, so thank you for agreeing to do this.
Excellent. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. My first question, we're going to talk about Brazilian music, and we could talk the whole hour about Brazilian music, right?
Yeah, we could talk for a year on just that.
So you're from Brazil, and my first question for you, how old were you when you first moved to the United States?
I was just a little toddler. I was 3 years old.
Okay, that's funny. We have a lot in common because I moved from Colorado to Ohio when I was about that same age. And I am really excited to have this conversation because you're a singer, I'm a drummer, and I feel like there's a lot we can learn from each other. How did you go about retaining your Brazilian culture? What did that look like? Was that like music, food?
We brought Brazil with us when we moved. My father spoke some English. My mother barely spoke any English. So, the house was a Brazilian household. For all intents and purposes, it wasn't located in Brazil, but it was Brazil. All of the cultural norms I grew up with, of course, the music, the food, and just the lifestyle, the way that our parents raised us kids. My sister and I came from Brazil, and my brother was born here, but we were all raised in a very Brazilian household. We also went back a lot.
Are you the oldest or the middle?
I'm in the middle. Can't you tell? Middle ones are always a little wacky, right?
We're the coolest.
We're the coolest.
This was in Chicago, right?
In Chicago, yeah.
Awesome. I love Chicago. Real cool city.
Very great town. I feel so fortunate that I had São Paulo and Chicago as my references in my formative years. Those are 2 incredible cities, great cities for music and very culturally rich urban centers, right, of both North and South America.
So, if you don't know, I'm a big percussionist. I was telling you, Carlo, the other day that when I was like 18, 19, I played in a few Brazilian ensembles as a percussionist.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite Brazilian percussion instrument?
I mean, first of all, that is so cool that you had that, in a young public school education or whatever the education. That is amazing.
Cuyahoga Community College.
Listen, shout out to Cuyahoga Community College. You guys are doing it right. I think my favorite Brazilian percussion instrument is probably pandeiro. That sounds kind of basic, but that instrument is a complete drum kit, played with just 2 hands.
I never was able to. One of the guys who was a little older than me was really good at the pandeiro. For my viewers who are unfamiliar, it's a lot like the tambourine, but it's a little different. It's a very cool sound, and you have to have a very the Brazilian swing.
You do, especially on that instrument. It's definitely a feel thing, and I think that's the hardest, because you can learn the positioning between the points and the hand, but the feel, that's a whole other ballgame, right?
When I first got to Cleveland and, I was surrounded by all these Brazilian percussionists, not actually from Brazil, but you know what I mean? There's like a whole new world opened up. Like, wow, I've never heard these. I mean, I've probably heard them, but wasn't able to associate them with it. And just falling in love with Brazilian music, Sergio Mendes, that record Brasileiro.
That's the best one, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really amazing music. Okay, so yeah, that leads us right into our next questions. What was it like working with Sergio Mendes? I understand you worked as a backup singer with him.
Well, he doesn't have backup singer. All his vocalists are front and center. They are all lead vocalists. What's unique about his sound since the 1960s is that the vocalists are mostly singing in unison. It's like a stack of
It's like a
vocals
choir.
live. It's well, no, it's not enough to be a choir. So typically, it's two or three vocalists who did his live shows. One of the vocalists since the 1970s has been his wife. She's sort of the main featured voice. She's the thread in all of the iterations of his bands. But unison singing. So it's kind of a unique kind of setup and very challenging. I mean, singing lead vocals in perfect unison with two other singers, that's really, really hard to do. It was wonderful. I sang live with him only very briefly in the late 80s. I was also touring at the same time with REO Speedwagon, so I kind of did a
Wow.
little bit of back and forth. And then I didn't continue working with Sergio until when was Rio 1? 2010, I think it was, that we recorded Rio 1. So that was, except socially around town, that was the first time I saw Sergio and worked with his wife, standing next to her singing. And it was wonderful. I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity to reconnect with him and to participate in those records, those soundtracks. We did both the first one and the second one, both films. The first one was so wonderful. There were three composers, right? There was Sergio and Carlinhos Brown, who is,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, you know who he is. And John Powell, who is a very well-known and respected film composer here in Hollywood. He's done a bunch of wonderful films. To me, one of his standouts is the How to Tame Your Dragon.
Okay.
He scored that. It's a beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful score. So it was the three of them. When we tracked Rio, the first Rio film, Sergio and John Powell were in the booth, and we were. You can see, actually, these are one of the few films where you actually see the credits, the vocalists getting credit, screen credit. There's like never happens. I've sung on other films before, and you never get a screen credit. They gave us credit. So at the end of the
Nice.
movie, if you watch the credits scrolling, it'll say, I think they called us the Rio singers, something like that. And it's like a very, very lengthy list of singers. So all of the A-list session singers in LA pretty much sang in Rio. And we came in as a Brazilian group. So there were 6 of us. It was me, the women were me and Gracinha, Sergio's wife, and Luciana Souza, who is a Grammy-winning artist. She's wonderful, wonderful singer, also a Berklee person. The 3 of us were the women, and then the men, it was Kleber George, who is also Sergio's guitarist, who's on Jingle Bells that you just heard. Him and I believe it was Rogério Jardim, a Brazilian drummer and vocalist, and Ricky Pantoja, who's a wonderful Brazilian keyboardist who also lives here. So we were the Brazilians who came in to, first of all, sing the tracks in the movie that were 100% in Portuguese, and also to lend a Brazilian flavor and accent to the English songs that were already sung by all these wonderful session singers, but with very American accents. So we infused a little Brazilian accent in there. That was my experience that I hold closest to my heart with Sergio.
I've never seen Rio, but I'm gonna put it on the list to watch with my son.
Oh, you have, oh my God, your son is going to love it. Love it. Well, he's probably too little to really
Yeah,
take it
he's too
in, but
young, but
you'll play it for him when he gets a little bit older too. They're
definitely.
great movies, and both of them are just wonderful. Really, really good movies. So proud.
All right, so next question. What was it like working with Airto and Flora Purim?
Ayrton and Flora. So yeah, it was kind of similar in that I really only played one live show with them. So we were together in the rehearsal process, and we played the show, and it was a wonderful experience.
Relatively recently, or is this
No,
back?
this was, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. It's been a minute. Flora doesn't live in Los Angeles anymore. She's back in Brazil, and I think Ayrton is as well. His kids are here, or their kids, and I see them regularly. We're
Ah,
colleagues. Yeah. Yeah,
awesome.
and they're making a record right now. They're very active, and yeah, I'm more in touch with them now than Flora and Ayrton. But they're amazing. Ayrton, he's a hoot. He's full of wonderful stories, and he's such a great showman. He is an incredible singer. I don't know if you've paid attention to his vocals, but they're
It's
amazing.
yeah, so my old drum teacher turned me on to the work they did with Chick Corea.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm mostly familiar with them through that, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely amazing musicians.
Amazing. I mean, they're legends, right? Complete legends. Yeah, Flora was a very dear person. I hung out with them a bit during that time. Couple times we went to hear some music together, and it was always really wonderful hanging out with them.
Awesome. All right. What about some other maybe younger up and coming Brazilian artists that have got you excited?
I feel so removed because I don't know. There's still a distance thing. It's not like when I was a kid that you had to actually go there to hear the music. And I used to always come back with albums. I would, buy records and always come back with records, and that's how I stayed in touch. Now I mostly go by people's recommendations. I was just turned on to Danny Black. It was incredible. Danny, Dini, Danny Black. There's always pretty stellar music coming out of Sao Paulo. I'm a big fan of just the vibe and the community of musicians in Sao Paulo. Danny Black is wonderful. Let me go to my Spotify because I just was turned on to this band called Machete Bomb. So interesting. They're blending samba and pagode with heavy metal, and it's just so cool. It's so cool what they're doing. So if you're into sort of a heavier rock vibe and want to hear what it sounds like with Brazilian elements, I was starting to listen to this guy, an MPB artist, Tim Bernardus. He just did a Tiny Desk recently. I thought he was pretty
Love
cool.
I love Tiny Desk. So
Yeah, so Brazil has a Tiny Desk
okay,
now.
yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
so it's
meaning
a
to bring that up.
yeah, it's a great place to discover sort of the up and coming, especially the MPB artists. I've listened to Lineker. I mean, she's the hot new artist, new pop artist right now. So, and I like it. I think her lyrics have a lot of depth. The
And she sings
production's
in
nice.
Portuguese.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She just swept the Latin Grammys. She just won like I don't know how many Grammys, but she's definitely the hot artist right now.
Okay,
Definitely
I've never
worth
heard of
worth listening to. Yeah, it's cool. I
put a
mean, it's very
Spotify.
pop. I think artists like Tim Bernardes are a little bit more representative of a Brazilian aesthetic, a Brazilian popular music aesthetic. Lineker, she's thinking global, right? She's right, but it's all in Portuguese, and it's still very very artistic. I liked it. I liked it.
All right, so for my next question, you we touched a little bit on this, just the whole concept of Brazilian music. And obviously, Brazil is a huge country, so I'm guessing, each region kind of has its own style of music, kind of
Yeah.
like here in Colombia, each region has its own style of music. Would you consider, okay, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, sorry.
That's okay.
But basically, what I'm trying to say, so when I was in high school and I played drums, I played drum set, and someone said, play a Latin beat. The two Latin beats, in quotation marks, that I knew how to play were the bossa nova and the samba. And then
Right.
I get to college, and then I realize those are actually Brazilian beats.
Right.
So I want to have this conversation. Does the music of Brazil neatly fall into this umbrella category of Latin music, or do you think it's outside of
Well,
Latin music? Or maybe it's simultaneously inside and outside?
yeah, I think that's more accurate. I think it's both of those things. Um, it is a Latin country. It's in South America, so of course it falls under the umbrella, but it's a big wide umbrella, right? That's like saying it's the same as regional Mexican music. Of course it's not, but it's under that sort of, in a global sense. It is contained somewhat to. It's, you know what it is, Robert? It's the language that makes it kind of ambiguous, right?
And for my viewers, Brazil doesn't speak Spanish.
Right. No.
I had to explain that to my parents, like embarrassingly recently.
No, no
Brazil.
shade to your parents. A lot of people don't know that. And, you know, unless you're familiar with who colonized what, right? You don't know. So it would make sense because Brazil is the only country in the southern continent that doesn't speak Spanish. But yeah, it's the Portuguese who colonized Brazil. And I also, now here I am going off on a tangent. Brazilian Portuguese is very different from European Portuguese. So
It's
even
like the
though,
same with Spanish. Yeah.
yeah, I would even go as far as to say like Spanish and then Castilian. Like it's really quite different. Grammatically, we approach things differently. The accent is completely different.
Or
They
American English and British English.
even more intense. I would say American English and maybe like Scotland or some hardcore, like where you really go, what? I think I understood 15% of that, even though it's the same language. So Brazil is very much a niche. And actually, Portuguese is spoken, isn't it like the ninth most spoken language or fifth most spoken language? I don't know, Google it. It's one of the major spoken languages across the globe. And yet, I don't understand most of it. I understand very little of it outside of Brazil.
What about within Brazil?
So within Brazil, there are dialect differences, but that boils down to accent. So you can, if you're familiar with someone's accent, you can still understand them. It would be like us having a conversation with someone from, the rural South. It would be a pronounced accent, but you're understanding everything they're saying. There are going to be differences in slang, and colloquial gestures and utterances are going to be different regionally, but that is in any place, right?
Yeah.
We say things here in LA that I know we don't say in Chicago,
Yeah, definitely.
and vice versa.
Right.
Remember, I think we talked about in class once, we were talking about tracking multiple takes and then creating a comp out of takes. And in Chicago, we call those mults, M-U-L-T. Nobody here calls those mults. We call them doubles
Huh.
or a double,
Yeah.
triple, whatever, or a dupe. Nobody says mults. So those regional differences, but you could still understand the person, right?
All right. So we're going to take a step away from linguistics and move back to music. I know those are kind of like my two specialties. So my next section is your music career. So when did you first start singing and what did that kind of look like?
I mean, I don't think there's a first for anything. I always sang.
Since you
That was
remembered.
since I remember, and since from what my folks tell me, since I was in a high chair. But I did have more of an awareness for my passion for it, and I was more actively doing it in, in school and in performances when I was probably about 10. And I started playing guitar then also. But actually, that's not true because I started playing the piano when I was 6.
Were your parents musicians?
No, not at all. Not at all. They were music appreciators. My dad was taking piano lessons when I was a little girl, and so were my sister and I. I would practice my book, then I would practice my dad's book, then I would practice my sister's book. So I was all
Just
about it.
classical.
It was just whatever, like little kids, piano scales and those little books. My dad's was like an adult piano, so it was like chords, just learning chords, all very basic stuff. I started taking voice lessons when I was 14. So by 14, I was fully like committed.
And when did you first start songwriting?
I have recordings of me recording myself playing guitar and singing my own songs when I was 11. So
Okay, awesome.
somewhere around then.
Young, yeah. And producing. I guess that's kind of tied in, right? I mean, it's all
It
connected.
is. And it's also really vague because there was no one starting point. I think I've always produced. I just wasn't aware that's what I was
Yeah, basically
doing.
the second you decide to record yourself, and then that's when the music production process kind of kicks in, because
Pretty
I'm guessing,
much.
yeah, yeah.
I would take my friends into the studio. So when I was, 19, 20 years old, I was already a professional singer. And my friends and I, we were always going into the studio. A
This is
guitarist.
in Chicago
This is
still.
in Chicago, yeah. Sometimes after a gig, someone would have the keys to the studio because they were an engineer there or whatever, and we would go and we would record all night. So I was pretty much hands off. I just sort of participated. I watched, I observed, but I was absorbing everything.
And was this more like the singer-songwriter type of music, or what type of...
It was kind of all over the place. This was 80s, so a lot of the stuff was pretty 80s and, that 80s sound, that sort of synthwave sound. I was writing sort of rock ballady kind of things, again, very 80s. And I did a lot of rock in Chicago.
Nice.
Before computer based, I had a home studio with a 4-track. That would have been 1983 or 4, around there. I had a home system, which was weird because nobody really did that, but I did. So I had a big Tascam 4-track cassette, and I had a sequencer. We didn't have computers yet. So I had a sequencer, I had a drum machine, I had a DX7, I had a really good microphone, and I would record on to this 4-track. None of that equipment was anywhere near being competitive with any music that's being released, obviously. Now we do have that. We're talking on those systems right now. But at the time, so I didn't consider that I was producing anything. I was just getting my ideas down and
Making
fleshing them out
demos.
and making demos and just registering my songs onto tape. A few years later, Pro Tools, had my first Pro Tools LE, the little Digio 1, the very first rack mount DAW. So I got into that around 97, 98. So just as it was becoming available on a more of a mass market. Same thing. And I would be collaborating with people. We would just sort of go back and forth. So producing, but I didn't think that was producing. And I continued to take bands or projects into the studio. To me, we were just recording. I never considered that producing. We're just recording. We're just tracking this stuff. Who's engineering? That's what I needed to know. So in the early 2000s, around 2001, I started focusing more on producing my own records. So I think that was the first sort of more conscious effort to produce. So then a couple records later, cut to just this feeling of, okay, I'm recording, I've got these bands, these projects, and whatever my solo work, I'm recording, got the recording down, and then mixing would always stall. I would feel a little bit unsure. Sometimes my mixes sounded pretty good. Sometimes they were passable. I had a track from that era actually get on broadcast TV, so it must have been a pretty good mix, but I had no idea what I was doing. And it was very hit and miss. Sometimes it turned out great, sometimes, and I couldn't figure out why. And I think a lot of people have that feeling, right? And things, because I always had a studio, things always ended up being my responsibility. So in bands, I remember I had a trio at the time I started at Berklee, and we had these great recordings, and then it all ended up in my studio, and everybody was like, okay, Carla, mix it. And I'd be like, okay. And I would mix, like going, I don't know what I'm doing, but going with my ears and doing the best I could. And sometimes it sounded okay, but sometimes it didn't. That's a long way of saying I never really started launching or producing career at any given point. In fact, I think it's only recent that I've recently, I mean in the last 10, 15 years, that I've said, no, I'm producing. This is what I'm doing now.
Well, I mean, you're obviously quite good at it if you're teaching it at Berklee Online, and
yeah, well, you know what they say.
practice makes perfect.
Well, another way of saying that is be careful what you do a lot of, because you will get good at it. You'll get good at it. So make sure what you do a lot of is something you really want to be doing. It's all about that reinforcing and putting in your time and, your 10,000 hours, whatever you choose to do, that's what you're going to get good at.
Yep, you gotta be careful about your time.
Yep.
It is precious. All right, my next question. Who are some of your biggest influences as a singer-songwriter and as a producer?
I think the answer to that is sort of the same. I mean, consciously as a producer, I look to people like Rick Rubin. I love hearing him talk. I loved his book. I love everything about him. I love everything, almost everything he says. I read Phil Ramon's book, and when I read it, I realized that I'm influenced by him too, just because of the body of work that he had and the artists that he produced were literally, these were the records that I grew up with, and the records that were at the top of the charts and in my sonic world as I was becoming a professional musician and as I was dialing in my listening and my analyzing of what I'm listening to. Most of them were his records. He
Isn't that funny? Like when you find someone and then you kind of go down like a rabbit hole. Like the first person who's kind of coming to mind for me, for my generation, is Pharrell. This guy's done all these records that I didn't even, and just like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I really enjoyed his book, and I recommend it for any producers and aspiring producers to get to know his approach to things and how he handled the particulars of the sonic space he was working with, and also the artists, how he dealt with the artists, their personalities, their musical selves. It's a great, great, great book. Great read.
Okay, I'm probably gonna make a fool of myself. Was he in the Ramones?
No.
Okay. I'm thinking of
He's,
Joey Ramone, probably.
yeah, but no, he started his career in the 50s.
Yeah.
And I think he died in the late 90s or early 2000s or something, and he was pretty active for decades. He did all the Billy Joel albums. He worked with everybody. Paul
I
Simon,
like
Bob
Rick Rubin.
Dylan, kind of like Rick Rubin. Yeah, kind of similar. You're right. Yeah, interesting. Interestingly.
Yeah. Well, and while we're on the subject of Rick Rubin, I was watching an interview with him, I think on YouTube, not too long ago.
The Rick
It's,
Beato interview?
no, I don't think it was the Rick Beato. I don't know. I think when I got back into making music about 2 years ago, I like watched a bunch of interviews, and something that really stood out to me was that he was saying that he doesn't care about having his own style. He wants to serve the music, where there's like lots of producers like in this, 21st century kind of whole electronic music, Dead Mouse, Zed, where like they have a very recognizable sound, whereas Rick Rubin doesn't care about that. And I don't know where I see myself falling into. I don't know if I want to try and build like my own signature sound, which obviously will come with time, or if I want to take the Rick Rubin route and just be like, I just want my music to sound good. So,
Yeah. So interesting. And I think you're right. I think that that is something that producers having a style, a sound, a signature, even a tag, producers tags. Producers are young producers now in 2026. Producers are seeing themselves as the artist. And I don't
yeah, and
I don't buy into that. I don't think producers
mhm.
are supposed to be artists. That's not producing, or is it? I mean, there are all kinds of producers, right?
It's a very new layered conversation, but for me, I just released this EP under my own name because I kind of want to build a reputation as a music producer, and to do that, no one knows me yet. So I don't know. I think it's a very interesting conversation. Like
It
a name
is.
I just mentioned, who I've been listening to a lot recently, is Zed. Have you ever listened
Mm. No, I
to
haven't.
him? He has a very signature sound, and I think it's really cool what he's doing because he also works with a lot of pop artists, but then he has his
Mhm.
own music.
Yeah, there is a whole camp of producers who are doing exactly that. They're producing other art, they're working with other artists, they're contributing to and collaborating on other albums, and then they have their own thing. So they really are seeing themselves as artists who get to sort of infuse a little bit of what they do in someone else's project. I think that's just a very modern and very particular avenue for young producers. And I think it's also kind of born of the whole beat stars thing, the whole thing of producers are beat makers. Well, I think you can be a beat maker and call yourself a producer. That's one avenue, that's one small direction. Traditionally, that's not what a producer does, but I think we include that now in the scope or under the umbrella, if you will, of what is a producer, because there are all kinds of producers. Traditionally, a producer is 100% there to serve the artist that they're producing. Your job is to elevate that artist to a higher level of from where they are now. That's your job. Your job isn't to put your signature on what you do. Having said that, I think inherently we all have our aesthetics, we have our tastes, we have our process, and in that respect, yeah, we are infusing someone else's sound with that thing that we do. But I don't think a producer's job is to have a signature or to have a tag or to I'm
It's
not
just
on board with
staying in
that.
the shadows,
Yeah,
staying in
it's
the.
like you're the director. You're not the artist. The artist is the artist. Or if you're collaborating with an artist and you're both the artist, okay, you're the artist.
I almost like for myself, I almost prefer the term composer slash producer because that I feel like a lot of these producers and like another big one that's coming to mind is David Guetta, where they're both composers in that they make their own song, but they also are producers in that they make songs for other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's great. And they have great careers. They really do. And it must be really fulfilling to, like make a beat and then present it to Justin Bieber and be like, what do you think, Justin? But it's still a collaboration, right? It's not like, I'm thinking, I don't know why, I just thought of Skrillex working with
I
Bieber.
love Skrillex.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. He's great. So creative, so wonderful. And he's another one of those, right? Who works with lots of pop artists and also is an artist himself. I just think it's a different sector of producing. It's certainly not the only way of producing. It's certainly not a traditional way of producing, but it is what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Skrillex, did you ever hear the song he did with Lady Gaga?
Probably. I don't know which one.
It's interesting. I got like so excited because those are two of my favorite artists, but it's bizarre because you would never guess that Skrillex produced it.
Well, see, now maybe Skrillex, I don't know him, but I'm going to speculate here. Maybe he's now saying, all right, now I'm in the producer's chair. Lady Gaga is a massive artist. That's probably smart of him to not
Stay in the
impose
shadows.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I got way too
Possibly, yeah.
excited, and it's still a good song, but it does not sound like Skrillex. But
That's great. That's
anyways,
great. I mean, you could say the same for Jack White, right? Jack White, who is this has a very signature sound since whenever
early
he
2000s.
exploded, yeah. And then he goes and produces.
Loretta Lynn.
Thank you. Then he goes and produces Loretta Lynn with this brilliant country sound. Like he was serving her and her sound and her artistry. It was great.
All right, so my next question I have here, if you could collaborate musically with anyone in any capacity, producer, songwriter, singer, what have you, who would you choose and why?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
John Lennon.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Maybe.
I think it would be
I'd probably
such
say
a
Lady
cool thing.
Gaga, but I think I just watched an interview with Lady Gaga. She said that Imagine by John Lennon would be like her desert island song. So
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there's a depth there that would be pretty amazing to witness, and be a part of. Tap into a little bit of that energy. That would be wonderful.
So you're a big Beatles fan growing up?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I'm old as dirt, but I'm not that old. So there was no Beatles when in my lifetime, as I was growing up. But me and my high school friends, we discovered them in high school, and it's all we listened to. It is all we listened to. We were obsessed.
Early's Beatles, late Beatles,
The
favorite
whole
album?
catalog. Favorite
Oh,
album, White Album.
okay, I think that's my dad's.
Revolver, White Album, kind of toss up, but pretty much White Album.
Yeah, I don't know what mine would be. I like Sgt. Pepper's a lot.
Sgt. Pepper's is a classic. I have it right here. The original, it's kind of falling apart, or else I would show it off.
All right, so, and might be a long answer for this one, and this is a really vague question, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. What does your production process look like?
I think it's pretty similar to what the course was, the Music Production 101 course. I think that's why I feel so strongly about the way that course is laid out. I use pretty much that process. Typically, when I write the song first. I don't touch my DAW. Some collaborations I have, we go right into the DAW. We'll, get a groove going and we'll write to that. We'll play around. There's always variations in collaborations. But when I'm by myself, I pretty much sit on my couch with a guitar and, a notepad, my phone. I always pop ideas into voice memos, and I'll flesh it out there. Often I'll write lyrics first. I usually have a title, and then flesh out lyrics, or mostly flesh out lyrics. So I have a song concept in mind. I find that if you don't give yourself limitations, it's just the ideas are it's too vast, it's too broad. You have to start figuring out strategies for zeroing in, because clarity is key in your writing and in your production, right? Once the song is fleshed out, so I have a form, I have lyrics, I have melody, I have harmony or chords, then I'll open up, typically Pro Tools. Sometimes, depending on what it is, sometimes I'll open Ableton or even Reason, but Pro Tools is my main DAW. So then I'll start building those foundational elements, right? What's the groove? If I'm planning on, because by this time I know what the end is going to be. So if I'm planning to track with a live band, for instance, the Christmas stuff you just heard, I knew I was going to track Jingle Bells with a live band. What I did in my DAW was really just a MIDI mock-up with a guide vocal that I can take to, so I can make sure everything's in the right place and I know exactly what I want when, and the form. I made a chart, but I knew that all that was going to get replaced by real people. So, but the process is the same. I'll lay down the foundational elements. What kind of groove do I want? And then I'll either program a groove on whatever drum software, or I'll just drop in a loop so that I can just flesh it out. And then I'll record my harmony either on a guitar or on a keyboard, depending on the song. And I'll flesh out a bass line. I want to have a good idea of what the bass and drums are doing. If it's going to be tracked by real people, I just need a general idea of the groove. I don't have to dial in every single
Yeah, you don't need
note.
the details. Yeah.
Right. But if I'm doing an electronic production, I'll start tweaking that. Not the sounds necessarily, but the arrangement, the part itself. I can swap out sounds later, right?
So it's a lot of back and forth is what I'm kind of...
Sure. This step, I'm also making sure the form is the way that I want it. Was it the second song? Oh, no, it was Jingle Bells. Well, the second song also. I did a lot of moving things around in the DAW. Obviously, I didn't write those songs, but I arranged them. I reharmonized them and arranged them. So I did have to figure out all these details. Then once all the elements are in place, I'll start working on the lead vocal. I'm not mixing yet. I don't throw on plugins. I can't anyway, because you're just going to cause latency. So, yeah, and then it goes, remember those 5 steps? All the editing comes next.
Yeah.
Then mixing, then I usually send things out for mastering.
Okay, be honest with me. So for my EP I did a little bit of jumping. I went from like the composition phase to mixing, and then to mastering, and then my master didn't turn out like I wanted, and I went back to the composition phase. Does that happen with you all the time as well?
Not that far, no. Because I'm not even going to think about mastering until I have a good mix. I'm not going to think about mixing until I'm 100% on board with all of the tracking and the editing. Do you know what I'm saying? So it feels like the way you described it is that there's nothing wrong with that, because I think in a modern environment, naturally there is some back and forth, because lines can be blurred. However, don't you feel like you wasted a lot of time?
Well, I had to send one of my songs to be mastered twice, so it definitely was.
And money. You wasted time
Yeah.
and money.
But I'm much happier with how it turned out. So,
Sure, exactly. And you caught what you caught, you discovered what you discovered, and you went back and you fixed it, and you're happy with the
and
result.
it was
And
quick. It was a quick fix.
yeah, exactly. But the end goal is not to have to go through all those steps to.
Oh,
Did you hear that?
cat alert.
Guys, of course they're interrupting. Guess who has lunch at 2 o'clock?
Oh, the cats. Do you need to take a break?
We might have to, but let me finish my thought. I think in the process of going farther and then having to go back, you learn the things that need to be dialed in and addressed before you take the next step.
I think for me, the big thing, and you're probably not going to be happy with me, I'm mixing on these things.
Yeah, no, I'm not happy with you.
I would maybe like to pay someone to mix, but I like the process of mixing, but I like the privacy. Basically, I don't trust my wife. Where like I'm not gonna show her a work in progress because then she's gonna give me input and then I'm gonna start doubting myself. So I prefer to not,
So this feels
and I don't
more,
want
yeah.
my neighbors listening to it
Yeah.
either. So yeah, I like.
Yeah. You know what might be interesting for you is, at some point with a project is to hire a mixing engineer, but you're hiring them with the allowing you to sit in on the mix sessions. So you watch them work and you ask them, can I ask you questions as you work? And most people are going to be kind enough to share. You know what I mean?
It's interesting because this last project I had, there's kind of like a rap reggaeton song, and I had to buy myself some headroom. So that changed the arrangement. I added in a beat of silence, and I think that actually made the song a lot better than it was. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, just more stuff to put in your tool belt.
Yeah,
Keep
so
track.
maybe I'll
Always
try
keep an
that.
eye on your master bus for sure. We
Yeah.
talked about that this morning. I did the final fall semester class this morning. Always keep an eye on that master bus. Be careful.
My next question. So you've been in LA for quite some time, right? You said since the 90s.
Since the late 80s. I came in 1987.
How has living in LA been? I imagine it's, changed quite some time since then. Is it like in the movies? Is it like I have in my head?
How is it in your head? Tell me, describe
Really,
what's in your head. Yeah.
in my head, just like really hot and like, I don't know, famous people walking around.
Everywhere.
Right? I
Famous
mean,
people.
obviously it's not like, well, I don't know. You tell
It
me.
it can get really hot, yes. It's not unusual to see famous people here and there, but you don't see them just walking around. They're in their mansions. People don't leave the house here very much. Yeah, it's changed a lot, but the world has changed. So I feel like I've been here for so long that I am above anything else a Californian. That's a long time. That's what, 35, 36 years? That's crazy. It's great. I feel like if I had a better place to go, I would probably go, but I can't think of one. So here I am. I like being in the middle of things. I'm in Hollywood, so I feel super centrally located, and I like the creative energy of Los Angeles. I like that it's an artist's town, and there's kind of a given that this is a creative person's mecca. I like that. I
Lots
like
of
that
live
energy.
music.
Yeah, not so much as it used to be. And in the pandemic, a lot of places didn't survive. But there's still creative energy. People are still making music. People are still collaborating. Yeah, in fact, I think that's probably the thing that's changed the most since I've been here. A lot of the sound stages have closed down. I think Sony and Fox are the only two remaining. The big studios are still going strong. Henson, Capitol, East West is right up the street from me. It's, Conway Studios is in my neighborhood. They're still going strong. So people are still making records in the big rooms, which is great. But session work is few and far between. People don't really hire singers very much anymore, or they'll hire one person to do something remotely. So, it's there isn't a feeling of abundance that there used to be up until the early 2000s, at least for me. The industry shift has been more toward licensing, beat making, as we were talking about before, and less, composition. Like an agency won't hire a composer to compose, a track for whatever, for Target, but they'll look to a singer-songwriter for, if they have something in their catalog, or a producer or a beat maker if there's something in the catalog that they could just license. So these things have changed, but that's changed worldwide, industry-wide, right? That's not really specific to Los Angeles. The lifestyle in Los Angeles continues to be a chill, laid-back lifestyle, which works really well for me. We have a lot of nature. I don't live near the beach, but I live right near Griffith Park. I sometimes I hike up to the observatory up there. That famous James Dean movie was filmed up there. I think Chinatown, there's some scenes from the observatory. It's just an exquisite place. You could see all of Los Angeles. You could see Catalina Island on a clear day. It's a beautiful hike. So we like nature here. It's a good place to live. It's incredibly expensive. And just getting worse and worse and worse. But I've been here a long time, so I'm in a favorable position.
Do you think it's still important for you to live, not you particularly, but I guess anyone out there maybe watching, if you want to seriously pursue a career in music, and I probably should have been more specific, but we'll say a music producer, is it still important to live in a city like LA, New York City, Nashville?
Yes and no. I think everybody has to kind of decide that for themselves. But if certain things that you want to do, let's say you want to produce the next pop star, you probably are going to have a better chance of meeting that person who needs a producer in a city like LA or Nashville or New York or even Chicago, right? A major music center. But arguably it could happen in Detroit and in Atlanta. Any major city, cosmopolitan city, is going to have wonderful talent. But there is a particular concentration here, and especially in Nashville these days. Nashville is kind of the center activity hub in the music industry. So, no, you don't have to. I think especially if you're a band or an artist, a solo artist, I think there are ways of strategizing a career, an independent career, that might even be better off not being in one of these areas, because you don't have to deal with the expense of living here, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard. We all have to work a million jobs to be able to afford to be here. But as a producer, this is where people do business. I don't know, where does Skrillex live?
LA.
He lives in LA? Okay.
I'm 99% sure. We could probably Google it, but okay, we're going to do a screen share. We are in Microsoft Edge because we are. Does Skrillex live? There you go.
Is that a picture of his house? What? Oh, no. He lives in Malibu.
You want to see his house?
He lives in Malibu? Dang. Yeah. Skrillex is doing well.
Oh, Skrillex is doing well. If you listen to his newer stuff?
No. What should I listen to?
If you just put in his new EP, I forget what it's called, but he just released an EP, I think a few weeks ago. And it's
cool. I will put it on my next playlist. I think that is an advantage to living here, is it's not outside of the realm of possibility to be somewhere and Skrillex is also at the same event, or there's like an event that happens in Malibu. They do it at Soho House in Malibu. I went once, and it's like this collective of composers and music industry folks. Like, you can see people like that here. So the location does have an advantage of having the proximity to other people who are doing what you're doing or what you aspire to do. That you're not going to get in rural wherever, right?
Yeah. And on this topic of Skrillex, I think I was listening to an interview with him or something. He said his big break came by he had a flash drive with his music on it, and I think he gave it to Deadmau5. So
There
that
you
just
go.
goes to show that
And
the
where did he
important.
see him, right? Probably some
Yeah.
club.
Yeah.
It was like
Hmm.
the hot band of the week, and everybody went out to see them, and he saw his
Uh,
opportunities. It's pretty
that's the
cool.
importance of face-to-face interaction
It
that.
is. I got my first record, got airplay from the same thing. I went to a little Brazilian party, little afternoon get together with a friend who was in town from Brazil. He got invited. It took me there, and one of the sort of premier DJ for Brazilian music, who broadcasts out of LA, was at the party. Gave him my album. The following week, he played one of the tracks on his show. But of course, you have to go out. You have to do things. You have to meet people. You can't just stay in
See,
your
I'm a I'm a
studio doing.
I'm a dad now.
You're a dad now.
So
Yeah,
I really can't be traveling, so I
you
gotta make the
can.
internet work for me.
But that's the beauty of living when we live in 2026. We can do that. We can have a thriving career as an independent artist, even as a producer. I mean, I know some folks who are doing well on Sound Better. I know some folks who are doing pretty well on Sound Better, offering their services. We do have an infrastructure now that we didn't have even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that exists now.
Okay, so I noticed you do have a very wide genre spanning career. You sang with Billy Idol. You've done a lot of obviously Brazilian jazz. As a listener, what are some of your favorite genres to listen to, or some of your favorite artists to just listen to
To just listen
when
to.
you're not working?
Yeah, it's hard because, first of all, when am I not working? Even when I'm relaxing, I'm working. And when music is playing, it demands my attention. It's hard to have background music. I started playing music for cats playlists in my house, and they love it. And I find it feels like background music to me. It's the only thing that feels like background
Is
music.
that like ambient
It's
or
very ambient. Yep, it's really
okay?
drony. It doesn't really go anywhere. They find it like the most soothing. I should have it on right now for them. But for me listening, I will put on something like Miles Davis kind of blue. I like stuff that's elevated but isn't jarring, so that again it doesn't demand too much of my attention, but it's enough that I feel I'm listening to
Relaxed
something
or
with complexity. Even though it's mellow, there's complexity, there's substance.
okay, so a lot
So
of jazz.
I'll put on Chet Baker or Ella Fitzgerald. Sometimes I'll put on a bossa nova or an MPB playlist just to listen to either old Brazilian music or some of the modern artists that I usually don't even know who they are. They're just playing. If I have company over and I want a vibe, I'll put on like a pagode playlist, so samba, or something fun like a blues playlist or station, or Motown, something kind of more fun and uplifting. When I listen to pop music, sometimes I'll put on, for instance, Billboard Hot 100, but that feels like work to me, because that's like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Then I'll start listening for production elements. I'll start listening to, sort of any threads that I can detect through the top 5 or 10 songs. What are they all doing that maybe is similar or trending or something I haven't heard yet? You know what I mean? So I'll do that sometimes, but it's work. It's not really relaxing.
You want to stay on top of things, but nothing beats the oldies, right?
Yeah, the oldies, or just anything that feels elevated and has like harmonic sophistication and sonic richness. I like hearing that, whether that's something new or something old. I like hearing warm things,
So usually more acoustic than electronic.
Yeah, electronic it'll take too much of my attention. I'll be like, all right, what are they doing?
All right, maybe you shouldn't listen to the new Skrillex EP.
Well, I will listen to it, but it won't be relaxing on my couch, that's for sure. It'll be an analysis, right? And I love doing that too. I really enjoy that. It's hard to put on music as a purely enjoyable experience. Let me rephrase that. Putting on music to have a passive experience is not easy or fun.
Can you listen to music while you're like doing cooking or housework, or no?
Housework, I do have a go-to album for cleaning the house. That would be Songs in the Key of Life. Really, really loud. I used to play vinyl when I had a record player. That would be my go-to. But no, typically when I'm doing just things around the house, I will listen to the news. I'll listen to a podcast.
You're a podcast person.
Yeah, I want to hear people's thoughts, opinions. But again, I wanted to have some substance.
But do you listen to music podcasts or just like...
I'll listen to like the Switched on Pop podcast is
I'll have to write that
one
down.
of my favorites. Kind of similar to what we're talking about. It's analysis. It's like these two super nerdy dudes. One's a songwriter, the other's a musicologist. And they do these great analyses of pop, whatever pop. I like them. I like the History of Rock and 500 Songs podcast. Sometimes I teach music history of rock. So that's a great resource for me. And I'm kind of a history buff, so I like that one. Those are the main music podcasts I listen to.
You listen to the Rick Beato?
Sometimes I'll jump on his YouTube, and
he's got a lot of great stuff.
He does. He's great. He does great interviews, and just him speaking about whatever, guitars.
I like his personality, and I like how anti-AI he is, and I'm really glad that subject hasn't come up, because I feel like that subject's just...
We'll go another couple hours, right?
More interesting things to talk about.
And just to speak a moment on that, I think that artists are starting to speak up. I mean, Rosalia, her whole album
Love Rosalia.
is about, she's like, I purposefully did this with all humans, people. This is all humans. So she's on a mission too. So that's wonderful.
You want to know what my mission is?
What?
I am anti-Spotify.
We should all be anti-Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah, that ties in with the AI as well. But we're trying to wrap up here, so I'll not even go there. But it's cool because Bandcamp seems to hopefully be making some space. Are you familiar at all with Pitchfork?
Yeah. Yeah, that's been around.
So they just named their album of the year as this group from Bolivia, actually, called Los Tutanaka.
Oh,
and they're not even on Spotify. They're only on Bandcamp. So I see that as a very positive thing. So.
Yeah. I think if we had another viable platform. I think all independent artists would leave Spotify.
I purposely didn't upload my EP on Spotify because.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully Bandcamp in 2026 will be able to see some of that market share that Spotify currently has. We'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, everyone I speak to is having some success there. So
awesome. That's really good to hear. What is next for Carla Hassett?
there's lots of stuff lined up. I've been producing a wonderful singer-songwriter from the Bay Area, and we're wrapping up her EP now. In fact, I have 2 mixes on my desk that I need to listen to. So hopefully, I mean, I know my part will be finished. We're aiming for before Christmas. So I've got the mastering engineer waiting for the final mixes. So that will be the next project to be completed. I've been working on a new record since last summer, and I was hoping to have it completed before I got busy with the semesters. That didn't happen. Working on it, as much as I can in the pockets of time that I find. Today, in fact, as we speak, probably, they're recording a string section in Brazil for me today, right now, as we speak. So I'm very excited about that. That's for one of the tracks from the new record. I have to complete one more song, and I have to redo 3 vocals, and then I'm going to sit down and start mixing. I'm hoping to have all the mixes done in January before my schedule goes bonkers again in late January. So we're aiming for a springtime release on that record. And it's English and Portuguese. It was all tracked live. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful record. So I'm excited about that. And then
That's a solo, so that's under your name, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I haven't done a full record since 2016. So it's been a long time. So I'm very excited about that. And then we'll see what the new year holds for me. I'm hoping to produce more artists because I really, really loved the experience I've been having with this artist and helping her to see her vision. Another advantage to living in Los Angeles, the access that I have to the talent pool, it's kind of nuts. It's just bananas who I can get to record. I put an all-star band together for her. We tracked over 2 days. Then she and I, very with more time, we tracked all her vocals, but we did the initial band tracking just over 2 days. Musicians were so ridiculous. I'm so proud of the work that we did. And we can do that here. People who are, on a break from a tour, or, you could fit them into whatever their scheduling is. You just figure it out. People want to work here. People want to be in a room with a bunch of people, especially if you put a session together where you're tracking live, because who doesn't love to do that? It's such a fun way of recording. Yeah, I'm hoping there's a lot more of that down the pike.
Right. Some more music of your own and more producing for other artists.
Yep.
This is the fun section. I'm springing these questions on you. I stole this one from Colbert.
All right.
Favorite sandwich?
Tuna melt.
Tuna melt with mozzarella?
Or cheddar.
What type of bread?
It's a toss-up between Malbec and Cab.
Never heard either of those, but I'll take your word. Okay, last question. Favorite movie?
Toss-up also between The Blues Brothers and Titanic.
Okay, very different genres.
Very different. It's my girly side and my music side, and Chicago side.
All right, Carla, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for being here. It's really been I can't talk. It's really been a a pleasure. I got to learn more about you. I hope you had fun.
This was
Is there anything
different.
else you wanted to add?
No, just thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite, Robert. And I'm going to listen to your album, your EP, as soon as I'm done grading Berklee, because it's the end of the semester. My work is piling, but I'm going to listen, and
All right, I hope
can't
you
wait to
do.
hear what you did.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for those of you watching, and happy 2026, and we'll see you in the next one.